So here's the pinion housing after a wash and a degrease. So there's some red paint in there with some black finish, but I'm going to wire wheel this and give it a spray job. These are safe out of rain here, and just get round to cleaning it as we go. So that one's the right one. Take you over. Let's have a look at the left one. The left one's not so clearly marked left. But anyway, so the other components will spray those as well. This is my swivel bearing housing, and on the whole, it's come up pretty well. There's some pitting. I don't think it's excessive. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some pitting on this, alright. Oh look, probably see me. Anyway, don't get me wrong, there's some pitting on it, alright. So, we've got to swap this bearing out because this bearing is totally shot. Even though I've got silver overspray on it, it really is. So let's get on with removing this old race. So what I've done is G-clamped the swivel pin housing to a suitable surface so it's nice and rigid. And the tools of the trade here are a drift. In this case it's a well-used drift because this started out as a piece of round bar, and a suitable size hammer. You've obviously got to take a little bit of care not to scratch the other bearing surface, which is in this case a cone bearing surface. You can put the drift through there, giving it a good whack, and it starts to come out. I haven't used any heat or any penetrating fluid at the moment. It's just you know, whack it there, then go to the opposite, then sort of in a cross, sort of hit it there, then hit it there. Don't keep hitting it in one place, it's got to come out straight really. Okay, got a lot of oil in there, a lot of dirty old oil around the bearing. Have to cut that. So that's what it looks like. There is a number on there. And that's the R2121/2, which is the outer race. Anyway, so let's go and get the replacement. So here's the replacements, here's the old ones, and we just double check. 21212. 21212. Admittedly, this is an old SKF, and this is not an SKF. Not only that, it's an old English SKF. So it was a good quality bearing, but unfortunately it just didn't have the upkeep that it needed. So the next step then is to take this part of the bearing and drift it in. So we need a suitable size thing that will drift it. We'll have to go find one of those. So in absence of a drift, just use the old one, which fits outside it. We can hit this outer. So what I'm going to do is just smear the outer with some oil, having cleaned the old aperture. And you want to be hitting it steadily, sort of a hit here and then a hit to the opposite corner. It wants to be going in square. Not sure that is going in square, but that's just taken a few little whacks. It's going to get harder as it goes further in. It's got about another 1/4 of an inch to go, maybe another 6mm. So just keep tapping it in until you're satisfied that it's seated, and I am satisfied it's seated. Could try and get a feeler down there, but it's not. I'll have to look at previous pictures, see if it's, because it does sort of look a little proud, but it's not going to seat anymore. So, and that's always the case when you're fitting a new bearing seat in. It's a bit interesting. So starting with a vernier caliper and some oil. This is the left hand pinion housing. Here's the new race. There's a new O-ring. This is degreased. I know what I've forgotten already. And this is the bearing housing with the new bearing. And this is the old cone, which is going to be fine, but that will go in later. The shims here, I've measured them. They're about 40 thou. They're supposed to be 40 thou. So, as close as I could get them, but there's 41 thou. That's why I've got these verniers. Going to have to do this one-handed, so this is interesting. Come on, don't dick about too much. Alright, 41.5. And that's going to be for the bottom arm. And then this is upside down because here's the drain hole. So we'll have to make sure we put the arm on the right way round when we connect the race. But first, we've got to put some jointing compound on this, and that's what I've forgotten. So today's joint compound is Heldite. Let me take you across to show you the mating surfaces covered in Heldite. And back down to the shims. These are 41. Now the smallest shim is going to go at the top and the largest at the bottom. Although once the bottom arm is on, it doesn't come off again. Any extra shims are added at the other end, which becomes the top. So this is upside down, like I say. So we're just going to put that on there. Right. Now it's going to get a bit complicated here because I've got to put a smear of oil in this and offer it up, but I'm not going to be able to film that, which is going to be a bit disappointing. So at the moment the bottom race is in and the other bearing is sat over there. And we're going to line up this hole with that hole and then put this pin on top of it all. So you can see some of the pitting there. It shouldn't be too bad, that pitting. And there's the race. It's just come up a bit as this all pushes in, and there's nothing in the bottom yet. Well, it's the top actually, because this is upside down. Just got to make sure that this arm faces away from that, so that when it's all rotated and on the left side, this points forward and this points back. So these are hand tightened down. Later on I'll give it a whack and then tighten them up again. But for now, that's just holding it in on one end. We've now got to hold it in on the other end. And this is the famous cone with a hole in, and the hole has to point towards the rear of the vehicle. So once it's the right way up, that will become pretty obvious, hopefully. So there's the dot, and once it's in the correct rotation, the red filler plug there faces the rear of the vehicle, so it's just going to pop that cone in there and then close it up in front of us. So once that's in there, you should be able to see that the hole faces the rear of the vehicle, and we can just hold that in place with a spring while I go and get the shims. So I'm not going to put jointing compound on this because it's at the top and it shouldn't need jointing compound. But I am going to put some oil on this. Don't forget your lock washers. So I'll put plenty of oil in this. This one just screws in, but you have to keep making sure it's all lined up. Keep wobbling it around and tightening it up with a spanner. 7/16 British Standard Fine or 3/8 Whitworth. Depends what you want. So when these are tightened up enough, and this second one with a spring balance is about £16 to turn the swivel, then it's done. There's no point in trying to adjust it with the tension or torque on these. You've got to use shims. If it's not right, you adjust it with shims rather than the torque on the bolts. Anyway, once you're happy with it, you can put the lock tabs on the washers, and I'm happy with it. So when you're happy that the swivel turns about £16 with a spring balance, you can put it on the vehicle to check that, or find another way with a vise or something. It's time to put the oil seal on at this stage. We've got the lock tabs all closed up. So this swivel bearing housing and the swivel pinion housing are joined together now, fully lock tabbed up. So the first thing to do really is to make sure that you've got a nice clean swivel seal housing, swivel seal face for the seal, a sealing face is what I think I'm trying to say. Make sure it's nice and clean. Now on this one there was a lot of rust and it's cleaned up reasonably well, so I know that it's already clean. That circumference goes all the way around. Let's go all the way around and have a look. Oops. Yeah, it's got severe extreme light conditions today. Did have a little issue here, but it's cleaned up nicely. So we take the swivel seal and you pack it full of grease, and it's important to pack it full of grease. That's part of what makes it a seal. Okay, and it goes over there, fits in the seal recess for the seal, and then we can just clamp that in place with the retainer. So the normal retaining bolt, oh dear, sorry about the radio, the normal retaining bolt's got the 1/4 inch British Standard Fine short bolt with a spring washer and then a plain washer, and they go in 5 of the 6 bolt holes, and the bolt hole that's forward facing the most, so there's one there at the back, one here sort of at the back, and one here that's forward facing the most, and that's on the same side as the arm because it needs to point forward to the vehicle, and that is where the steering stop bolt will go, which is a 1/4 inch British Standard Fine thread, but it's a slightly different configuration bolt. It doesn't have a spring washer. Probably would help if I clean the threads, I think. Anyway, so that's the important thing to remember. That's your steering stop with an adjustment. So it's smeared with grease both sides of the gasket, joint-in washer. Here's the darling. Let's find some. Well, let's work this out first. This one and this one will be regular bolts. This one will have the steering lock stop. This one will have the jacking point, and that one will be a regular bolt. So the steering lock tab is on the inside of the bearing housing. So it's not on the nut side, it's on the bolt side. It acts like a big washer, and that's in view of that. Now which way around this goes, I'm pretty sure it comes this way. So the jacking point has to go that way on, because if you try and put it this way on, it won't actually fit. So it has to go that way.